Okay, this is going to be part 2 of our surface area of prisms and cylinders lesson. In this part, we're going to focus on cylinders. So if you remember from last time, hopefully you do, we said that the surface area of a prism was equal to the perimeter times the height plus the two bases. Now, the question is, does this apply to a cylinder? Can we use this formula to apply it to a cylinder? So let's go and find out. So first off, here's our cylinder. And I think you'd agree, our two bases, we have two bases, both of them are circles. So we could find the area of those two bases very easy, just using our pi r squared area of a circle formula. But what about the lateral area, right? So imagine for a second that we were to unwrap this, right? So if I were to, so ignore the bases for a second. So I'm going to kind of pull this apart. So imagine this being pulled apart. So we have a base on top, a base on bottom, and then we unwrap the cylinder, right? And the cylinder might look something like, not drawn to scale, of course, but it might look something like this. Some sort of rectangle. So I think you'd agree, finding the area of the bases, easy peasy, right? Those are circles. But what about the area of the the rectangle? Well, the height, we know what that is, but what about the length? What is that? Well, before, right, we said it was the perimeter. When we were talking about prisms, it was the perimeter. Is it the same? So let's kind of go and unwrap this again. But let's kind of go, I'm going to show you an animation that unwraps this. So here we have our cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start unwrapping this cylinder. I'm going to try. Let's see if I can do it. I might not be able to. Let's see here. There we are. So notice how it unwraps. And look at what that, so I'm going to kind of go through that one more time. So here we are. We have our cylinder. And we go to unwrap it. Notice what happens when we unwrap it. There's our rectangle. But what was the length? So we have the h height. But what is that length? Well, that length, I think you'd agree, is just the circumference of the circle, right? So our rectangle, it's that red part, right? That area is going to be the height times the circumference of the circle. Okay? So going back to our piece here, that pink line up here, so I'm just gonna kind of highlight it. I'll do it one more time. I'll highlight in purple, not purple. Let's go highlight that in like green. This right here is the circumference of the circle, which you could call the perimeter of the circle. So our formula still works. If we want, excuse me, if we want to find the surface area of this cylinder, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take the perimeter of the circle, we're going to multiply it by the height, and then we're going to add our two bases. But again, the perimeter of the circle in this case, right, is the circumference of the circle, which is 2 pi r. So this right here is our perimeter. We're going to then multiply that by our h plus our two b's. But notice it's exactly the same formula. It's just that our perimeter, we have to come up with it differently. So let's look at a concrete example. So what do we have here? We have a cylinder, and it's got the bases have a radius of 3, and it's got a height of 9. So let's go through and do our normal thing. So again, the surface area of all these shapes is the perimeter times the height plus our two bases. Okay, well, what is our perimeter? Well, our perimeter is the circumference of a circle. So that is 2 pi r, where r in this case is 3 centimeters. I'm not going to include units this time. We did enough units last time. I'll just include the units at the very end because we know the units are going to be centimeters squared. Okay, so that's our perimeter. So that's going to be equal to 6 pi. Okay, now let's talk about our height. Our height is 9 centimeters. And then we have our bases, right? So one of our bases is the area of a circle, and that is pi times r squared, where r is 3, so that's 3 squared, or 9 pi. So let's put this all together. So our surface area equals the perimeter, which is 6 pi, times the height, which is 9, plus our two bases, which is 2 times 9 pi. So we end up getting, doing the math, right? We get 6 times 9 is 54, so 54 pi plus 18 pi. That's going to be 74, 72 pi, and our units, of course, are centimeters squared. Okay? And that's all there is to finding cylinders. Very similar to what we did with prisms.